Well, our journey through Genesis has brought us to chapter 12 and Abraham. And most of the time, scholars look at this as the pivotal moment of Genesis, because Abraham, the patriarch, arrives. But we said we weren't going to be so consumed with ourselves and finding humanity in the story. We were going to allow God to take center stage. And so although this moment so often is described as the call of Abraham to restore humanity, the creation of the Jewish nation, and ultimately the promise of God to deliver us through Jesus, we're going to stop and say, okay, let's push that to the side today. Because what if Genesis 12 isn't about Abraham at all? What if it could have been a guy named Bob? Maybe it's not Abram that's important. And I was struck by something as I read these words that I know so well. A long time ago, when I was learning how to be a good minister, a counselor, I learned that I was supposed to try to help people who were having trouble communicating make I statements instead of you statements. I statements reveal the heart of the speaker. Try to express emotion and feeling instead of focusing on what the other person has done. And it's remarkable to me in Genesis chapter 12, God speaks in I statements. The great I am begins to communicate with this human being, and he makes all sorts of I statements. And I guess that makes sense when you pause and recognize that God, the I am, is the only true I speaker in the entire existence. God is. God alone is. Everything else was spoken into existence. And so God in Genesis 12 stands in the center of the story, speaking to his creation again. And so it's not about Abraham. It's about God. And the abundant reality that just like Abraham, you are simply a beneficiary of God's goodness and his grace and his action. And so God speaks and makes a statement that reveals an abundant reality of his basic nature. The Lord said to Abram, "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all people on earth will be blessed through you." And if you know Abraham, you know that God's promise is based on his nature, not upon Abraham's worthiness, right? In fact, as I was reading the chapter again, I think I took one breath and then Abraham blew it. It just happened so quickly. He is not courageous. He is not faithful. He is not a man of integrity. And so this story that is the center point of religious thought in so much of human history reveals a very flawed guy, but an amazingly faithful creator. And that's really what the story is about. God's character, his capacity to love, to bless, to forgive, and to bless again. And it's not based on the actions of those he loves. It's based upon who he is. It's strange because it's a truth that I know. I know that. I've learned it many, many times, but somehow my enemy wants to twist it. The enemy that's been twisting truth into lies since Adam and Eve were in the garden continues to try to twist this and lie to me and make me believe that God's blessings are based upon my actions. When Abraham reminds me, they can't be. The blessings of God are based upon His promise, on His nature. Abraham is not the point of the story. As much as 3 billion or 4 billion people today would like to tell us that he is not. Abraham is not the point, God is. And you and I know it gets confusing. David was trying to remind us of this truth today. You and I are not even the point of the redemptive work of Jesus. I know we like to think we are. That we'll at least play the damsel in distress. But that's not the story. Paul reminds us that God is restoring all of creation through Jesus. Through the actions of Christ and His obedience to death, that God, through Jesus, is restoring all creation because, you see, His creation is meant to reveal His glory, and right now you don't. So the point of the story in the redemptive work of Jesus is the restoration of your true nature so that you reflect God's glory. It's not simply that He misses you so much. It's that He is the one worthy of glory, and He will be given glory. And all creation will sing the song of the Lamb because God is the focus of eternity. It's a hard thing for us to learn and remember. But just for a moment, let's assume that it is about Abraham. It'll make me feel better. Let's assume that in some small way, Abraham is the focus, that in some way he's being called. I'm going to assume that by making it about Abraham for just a moment, I can make it about you and about me. That somehow in this call, we are going to be blessed. And so when I pause and stop and think, well, maybe God is trying to bless us. Maybe we are, for just a moment, the focus. I remember what God in the flesh spoke. Do you remember the words He spoke about blessing? Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Boy, these blessings are weird. But if you and I are the recipient of the blessing, we better pause and notice the blessings are weird. Blessed are the meek, for they inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled by men. You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. And there it is again. My seeking after God's blessing is not supposed to be about me at all. Just as Abraham's call is not about him, mine is not either. The blessing of God, even in difficult moments, is not about my reward. They are meant to reveal the glory of God. That's the blessing that you're receiving. Is in a moment you reveal the glory of God. You're in mourning, but you have peace. You reveal the glory of God. You're in the midst of strife, but you seek peace. You reveal the glory of God. We are meant to be, I think, David, the flashlight. It makes more sense. A city on a hill. A light that cannot be hidden. I think it's true. Your life is supposed to be a reflection of the great I am. And so the testimony of your life speaks not of self, but of God. I am blessed because God is faithful. The work of my hands is the result of the work of Christ in me. I am the least of those who should be blessed, but it's so in order that you might dare to believe in the promises of God. I just paraphrased some great passages of Scripture there, didn't I? That we all know. But sometimes we fail to see. Jesus, God in the flesh, lived and spoke this promise. I have come that you might have abundant life. It's an amazing promise of God. In other words, Jesus, God in the flesh, lives. And as a result, you are blessed beyond measure. Not because of your goodness, but because He is. Abraham's story is the revelation of God's promise. And you and I are called to be the same. Read these words again. You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. We live in a time where God is thought to be a figment of imagination. Or, if He exists, He is some impersonal force, a universe that is relative and is expressed in a multitude of religious truths. That's how people think of God today. Either a figment or relative. Seems that you and I have a little bit of work to do. Because we are called to reveal a very, very personal God. Interested in the everyday moments of life. The everydayness. The ordinary. There's no other way to explain Jesus than a God who's interested in the ordinary. That's why He spent all that time with ordinary people, doing ordinary things. We are called to live in a foreign land, to work, not because we are somehow worthy, but because God should be the recipient of the praise of all creation. And so I speak. I am unworthy. That's my designation. I am unworthy. God has kept all His promises to me and blessed me in spite of. Can you make a list of in spite ofs? God has blessed me in spite of my thoughts, my actions, and my intentions. Is that not true of everyone in this room? God has blessed me in spite of my thoughts, in spite of my actions, in spite of my intentions. In 1,000 ways, I can count the blessings of God. And he is writing the story of Jesus. And I so perfectly reveal the need for grace. Those are good I am statements. I am unworthy. I am so blessed. I am a recipient of grace. Because you see, I am paying attention. I'm learning the story of God and who he is. I'm learning that morning follows night. It's hard to see sometimes when it's dark, but I know it's true. Morning follows night because it's a reality of who God is and how he has created his universe. The blessings of God are going to come. And God is very present. And it's a hard one to learn. Even when I sin, God is very present, pleading with me to receive his blessing instead of what I'm trying to build. And God is grieved by the condition of my life. It's hard. It's not supposed to be this guilt-ridden complex that forces me into some negative thought space. I'm using the language of the world. God is grieved by my actions, and so I am blessed. Because even in his discipline, you see, I'm paying attention to the story. Even in his discipline are hidden the blessings of God. That every time he acts, it produces life. Because God is an artist who can transform anything. And his promises are supposed to be trusted. Why are the promises of God supposed to be trusted? Because it's his goodness that delivers them, not mine. The goodness of God, his faithfulness, that's what produces the blessing, not humanity's condition. Because you remember, the story isn't about humanity. It's about the Lamb. You remember that? It's the Lamb. Why did Jesus die? Well, let's leave us out of it for a second. Do you ever think that? You try to pause. Why did Jesus die? And I know the words, because he loved me so. But what if it wasn't about me? What if I read the garden story different? He died because of obedience, didn't he? Not my will, but your will be done. So Jesus died and sacrificed his life in obedience to the Father. That's the story. That's why he alone is worthy to open the seal. That's why he alone is worthy, as a conduit of blessing, to take what he has earned and to say, oh, this blessing belongs to a guy named Bob. Because of his obedience, the blessings of God flow to those who are undeserving. And you are a city on a hill, a light that has been lit and placed in a dark place so that the whole house can see. Your life is lived so that others will notice God and will praise your Father in heaven. when we dare to believe, to act in faith, as Abraham did, if we act in faith, in obedience to the call of God, deeper blessings are waiting to be found that are a revelation not of our worthiness, but of the glory of God. Because each blessing reveals the artist. Each blessing reveals the author. Each blessing reveals the glory of the Lamb. And new beginnings are a blessing of God. And new promises are waiting to be discovered, because God is a God of promise. Now, if you're here this morning and you've never claimed Jesus as Lord, if you've never said you believe that He is God in the flesh, the Son of God, who died, who was raised, and who lives forever, this is an opportunity to do that. To claim the blessing of God offered through Jesus in His death, to participate in that death in baptism, and to be raised in new life, empowered by the Spirit to live for God. This is an opportunity. And if you're a believer and you're struggling, that there are hardships that you are in, remember, the blessings of God are present, waiting to be discovered, and we want to pray that you would find those this morning. Whatever your need is, would you please come forward as we stand together and sing.